mouth. And this particular Mobius mouth will actually mask the Asperger's syndrome. And if you can figure this out, you can actually suspect a child having Asperger's syndrome. Another way is the way the child is lying on the back, the way the child is turning. This kind of pattern of turning over in early childhood will be early indicator for you to suspect that possibly your child in most of the situation looks brighter, but maybe later on he might be having a diagnosis like Asperger's syndrome. You need to be careful. Then, when the child is crawling, look at the sequence by which child crawls. They are crawling and suddenly they will lose the balance. They will hit. If they are losing the balance, they are hitting. They will drop down. And when they drop, sorry, what happened? Okay. Yeah. They drop down. Look over here. There has to be a substantial gap between the knee and the hand. And there has to be complete straightening of the elbow. If the child is not able to straighten their elbows, finally they will advance the body and then the knee joint will hit the wrist and the next is they will topple down. The early indicator that yes, child is having the Asperger's syndrome. Then the child is going to walk and we know about protective reaction, that is you will have, it is like how to understand protective reaction. At least in your country you may not make out. In our country over the road we have main hole drainage, okay, and it will be there at the center, okay. Sometimes to clean the sewerage system they will open the drain lid, and then if there is a flood water over the road due to rain and the people have to walk, so they don't know there is a open main hole there. So now what happens is they keep walking and then imagine the feet is landing over the main hole. Now if you realize before you land down, okay, you will take back. That is the best situation. If you don't realize, without understanding that there is no ground under that, you will lift your back leg, you will go down in the main hole and drainage system will flow you away. Third situation, you go over the main hole, back leg is up and you are going down. Moment you realize that nothing is there down, you will immediately raise your hand. This is a protective reaction. Okay, can one of you come? Okay, now many of you would be playing. Okay, you play with your friends. I will do something with him. Okay, you play with your friends and then suddenly what you do, you hit their knees. When you hit their knees, if they do not anticipate, suddenly person will fall down. That is nothing but flexion withdrawal or negative supporting reaction. But next time when he is aware, he won't allow you to bend his knee. Third situation, another situation. You play and you actually push your friend. So now when I'm going to push him, so I have told him already he has tightened his muscles. Okay? Had not I had told him and I still push him, what will happen? His hand will move away. Okay? Sorry, thank you. Right. Like that you have the protective reaction happening. These protective reactions are actually absent in the children who have Asperger's syndrome. So the parents will complain to you that my child is frequently falling. You need to be careful, and then the child comes to you to say that I have concern with my child that my child is falling in the school. Look at these two patterns of the two different children. They are all, the beauty is that they are all less than 1 month. Okay, this is the high risk baby and this is the normal baby. Look at the pattern of the toy that has been offered to the child, how the child is holding. If you see your child, this is what is called midline orientation. So how to understand midline? We have one midline and out of midline, two tasks we do. Most of the tasks will come centralized, and that centralization gives you bimanual coordination or bimanual task. Without this you cannot do. If a child cannot do this centralization, midline control, that means there must be something wrong. And this is very easy to identify in newborn babies. You will be seeing the newborn babies in the NICU or even later on postnatal after some time if they don't have any concern. What you have to notice is one, amphibian posture. Okay. Second, you have to notice is when they are in prone position, the bottom is lifted up. Remember, this bottom is getting lifted up can be a concern if there is a potential iliopsoas tightness from the childhood, from the fetal position. If it is so, you need to start intervening then and there. And possibly you can have a DDH. Then, this particular thing you will identify in child. This is a normal child, and this is a child who has got Erb's palsy. Erb's palsy child start walking, crawling. When they start crawling, they land on their dorsum of the wrist. When they land on their dorsum of the wrist, they continue to do this function. After that, believe me, it is very difficult to correct. So that means if we have to correct this, we have to go much before in early age to correct. Then, another situation, two kinds of hypotonia you will see. And in both kind of situation, this is a normal child, okay? Both children uniqueness is that they are doing double sitting. In this double sitting, this child is keeping the hand off. Why? Because the trunk is having good control. So the neck is not going backward. This baby is not able to hold the head in midline. He is extending and then hand is propping down, forward writing using. If this forward writing is absent in the baby, this baby topple down. The importance is that for this baby to take this hand off, the trunk should have sufficient control. For the trunk to have sufficient control, the abdominals must be strong enough. If abdominal is not strong enough, they have the postural balancing strategy by taking the neck back. Okay, so with this idea, what clinical message we get? One clinical message we are getting is that no child will follow a fixed pattern of development and it will always vary. We have done this, we have identified this in longitudinal studies where we track a child who is newborn up to 3 years of age. Normally longitudinal studies are very difficult to perform because same child at 3 years down the line, every 3 months tracking and getting their developmental analysis is very difficult. Many times you will have a dropout. So the thing is they don't follow. Why it is they don't follow a normal course? A normal pattern is like a graph going up always in motor development. Not possible. Because that is called consolidation phase. Consolidation phase is a moment at a time I acquire some skill. Then I need to get those skills consolidated in my system. I need to get maturity. Those maturity will transform into a skill. That skill mastery, once I have, then I will go to acquiring another skill. That skill when I acquire, I practice, then once again go for consolidation phase. And that consolidation phase is the pause phenomenon. So, always your graph of the motor pattern will be up and down. It is never up steep. No way, not possible. That is what you see as a motor quotient. And this motor quotient, the way you understand about the intelligence quotient, is a constant phenomenon. It is biologically driven. Once you have your motor quotient fixed, and you know what is the motor quotient, which will be identified only through the normative scale, after that motor quotient, any time you do the intervention, cannot be changed. Similarly, the way your IQ is there, once your IQ is analyzed by the psychologist, it will be a constant factor. You can have effective training to improve your capacity, but the IQ will not change because it is biologically driven, genetically driven. Second thing is that appearance of one particular function, just because one action is there in a child, one milestone is there, that cannot predict the child will grow later on. That means if my child is crawling today, it doesn't guarantee that child is going to walk. Believe me, many of the crouch gait children are able to do kneel standing and they are able to do kneel walking. At cost of what? They have severe hamstring contracture. Ultimately, they are never able to get up above the floor against the gravity in their life. Another thing what we notice is that in normal development, repeated execution of one motor function are never identical. That means same task again if we are going to do, it cannot be identical. It is like how to understand when you are in the best of your mood, you will be writing perfectly, your handwriting will be beautiful. When you are in horrible state of your mood, you don't have interest to write, your handwriting will be bad. Maybe sometime you will suspect whether you have written by yourself. It is like if you, normally in our country we have 3 hours paper. So we have to write continuously for 3 hours. Sometime now it has changed. It is like a one question and you have to write for 3 hours. No option. You write how much you want to write. 3 hours, 20 pages, 30 pages up to your capacity. Last phase of writing, suddenly you start recollecting many informations are missing. Then your handwriting will change. And as an examiner who sees your paper can identify, easily make out that, oh, student was in that particular state of mood where suddenly all the information came and then they are doing like this. So the handwriting written by you before and then in the last hours before completion of 3 hours will never be equal. So repeated execution of one motor functions are never identical. And then any child, they try different strategy to execute a similar performance. I hope many of you have children, okay? So what you do, you have a ball, you throw the ball and you say, baby, go and get the ball. Child will go and get the ball and give you the ball. Again you throw. It is nice to enjoy. Again baby will go and get the ball. 3 or 4 times if you do, 5th time baby will object. So what they will do is, they will get the ball but come to you slowly with anticipation that again you are going to ask the baby to go and get the ball. The quality, that is the thing. That means child is understanding that I will not be doing the same way quickly, running and getting the task done. And then normal infant, they have a variable course. That means in between the single function and both within and between the infants, there will be variability. So if at all you have a twins baby, 2 twins will never grow. So the parents always have a comparison perception. Why one is growing well, one is not growing well. That is where Dr. Ashma spoke to you about the myelination. The 2 brain will myelinate differently. And that myelination will have a capacity based on how much of neuron circuitry will be maturing to get the skill acquisition. So that means that development of a large number of brain mechanisms parallel to each other or partly consecutively will become interconnected in an individually highly variable way. No way possible that two brothers will execute same way. No way possible that 2 sisters will have same kind of a thinking or same pattern of cooking or same pattern of dressing. Now you understand, many of us, we are putting shirt. What we do? If you are a right hand dominant, you take your apron out, first cuff that you will put, that is on the left side. Second cuff that you will put on the right side. If I ask you to reverse it, you will have problem. Similarly, when you put your trouser, you first stand on your right leg and you put first left trouser. If I ask you first one to be put right trouser, you will have problem. You will have planning problem. You will have thinking, oh, I have to do this. That moment, ultimately we are doing both legs. But this is how we have been sequentialized. This is how we have mastered the skill. Any alteration in that routine will alter your quality of motor execution. The 4th point, the gross and fine motor skills. They are independent to each other, okay? Which is important for qualitative and quantitative changes in the motor performance. Can you think of how prehension grasp this baby is having? Look at this baby, they are all 1 year old. The baby is squatting, holding the toy and maintaining the balance. Look at this baby holding a peg and trying to put in the hole and trying to identify. That means these are fine motor skills. If at all you have, do not compare it with the gross motor skills that if my child is holding a peg, my child is holding a piece of grain, the child will be able to ambulate and gross motor task will do. Not all of us are Olympian. If at all we are practicing for football, none of us become a good, great footballer. Those who become great, good footballer, they have a different skill. So, what we see is that for the motor assessment, all these things that we analyze, okay, we have different scales. And all those scales has its own functions. So, these are the scales that we see in our academic and clinical practice that we are going to use to identify. And believe me, all these are motor scales. Except this, it tests the proficiency of the motor performance. But this test is not applicable. It is called BOTMP test. This test is not applicable in below 5 years age line. This test is applicable only after 5 years. But before this, whatever you are saying, this you can apply up to 4 months. Up to 4 months. After that, it is redundant. This you can apply up to 18 months from birth. This you can apply Alberta up to 18 months from birth. GMFM you can apply from birth to any years, because this is called criterion referenced scale. Criterion referenced scale are the scale which analyzes the effect of intervention. Rest one, that is TIM, Infinite, Alberta, P-body and BOTMP. These are all called as norm-referenced scale. Norm-referenced scale cannot be used to identify the effect of intervention. Only criterion reference scale. To some extent, criterion reference scale capacity is there in infinite scale. That means if you identify a baby early and you apply the intervention, the baby will show the effect of your intervention change. That can be identified, but the limitation is only 18 months. P-body, one of the most popular scale. Most of the American, European as well as the Canadian country, they analyze this P-body or when you do the research. Another one, the Alberta. Most of the scale I will be compared with the Alberta because these are all considered as gold standard scale. All these gold standard scale, they all will be assessed for its reliability. When they are assessed for its reliability, and then they are made as a clinically applicable. But the beauty is that first 3 scales is applicable from birth. First one till 4 months. The second, the infantile and Alberta up to 18 months. Over after that, no use. Then comes GMFM. GMFM is meant exclusively for the cerebral palsy because this is not a non-reference scale. P-body is a scale that is a non-reference, can analyze the motor skills from birth to 5 years of age. It has a capacity what is called gross and fine motor both. Similarly, BOTMP has those connections. But in addition to that, BOTMP has balance as well. So these are the motor skills that we see in our clinical practice that we use, and that is the reason why we need motor evaluation in younger children. So in this 3 days program, you will be learning about Prestel, the general movement. Then you will be learning about the test for infant motor because Prestel is applicable only in the NSU stage. After that, no use. So then TIM, then Infinite and Alberta. These are the scales because each scale has its own time span to teach. It is quite extensive. So these scales you will be learning later if time permits later on. But in this 3 days program, you will be actually exclusively learning about first 3 scales in detail. Thank you so much. Thanks.